When you read any news article or see anything in the media about disclosure or aliens or UFOs, usually there's some sort of fear that's interlaced in there. Our hope is that we move away from the fear and start generating hope and excitement.
First of all, if they were going to eat our faces off, it would have already happened.
We're already living amongst aliens. I mean, I look at a praying mantis and I'm like, that thing is so cool. It's so different.
And let's be honest, humans are the only thing that doesn't match this entire ball of this perfect ecosystem and harmony. I think.
So who's the alien?
We're manifesting this new experience because it's time to grow. Welcome to Flow Getter, Erica. It's been a while since we podcasted, and it's great to see your beautiful face. Welcome, listeners. We're back. It's been a bit. We're back. Erica, we purposefully don't speak so that we can save up all of our genius here on Flow Getter for this podcast. So we're like two soda pop bottles ready to burst all of the goodness. So today I was wondering, what was top of mind for you? Are we about aliens, fashion, deep self-hatred? Like, what are we going to deep into today? Like, what are we going to do?
You know what? I feel like A and C kind of go together. Aliens and deep self-hatred.
Oh, yes. It's perfect.
I mean, and we can kind of weave in fashion because I feel like, we've seen images of aliens who are super fashionable. So that's very fun. Yeah.
I love it. That is great. Well, Flow Getter audience, welcome. And today's topic is aliens, fashion, and deep self-loathing. So we're going to start it off with, why are we talking about aliens? And why should we be talking about aliens? I'm going to speak for myself. I don't want people to think I'm a crazy person. But I really believe that we are here and we're not alone and in this galaxy, and that basically friends and enemies from other galaxies have been here, are here, and it's just a matter of time before that's more public knowledge. So we're having this podcast to say, don't freak out. We're going to give you the tips and tricks to dealing with intergalactic friends and enemies. Erica, your thoughts?
That's awesome. Yes. So I kind of want to start off with this idea of fear factor and fear mongering even around this whole discussion.
Yes.
Because I feel like when you read any sort of news article or see anything in the media about disclosure or aliens or UFOs, I feel like there's a fearful voice behind it, or there's some sort of fear that's interlaced in there. Yeah. And I think first and foremost, stepping away from that narrative is kind of what we're trying to do here, is change the conversation, because it's nothing to be afraid of. And we'll tell you why. Keep listening. But first of all, as we know, fear is debilitating. Fear is, it is the opposite of who we are intrinsically at the core. And there's genuinely nothing to be afraid of in this existence, in this universe, in this life, nothing. So I think starting there is good. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, I agree, because a foundation. Okay, so the whole Flow Getter way is you do not have a foundation of fear. It doesn't matter what the topic is. You don't start with terror. Okay. Now, there's certainly things like life, this space-time reality, man, it's full of ups and downs. We're not saying that nothing to be afraid of exists. But the whole point is that you have control. And if you're being manipulated by your own ego or things outside of you to get more afraid, then I just think that that's not a great place to start. And I wanted to say too, someone made a list of like I think it was like every 5 years or every decade, like what you're supposed to be afraid of. It's like, hantavirus is going to kill you. This is going to kill you. Or, this is going to get it. It was sort of went back like 50, 100 years or something. And it just puts there's sort of this narrative out there like, okay, now this is the thing you're supposed to be afraid of. And while things are concerning, hantavirus is no joke. Coronavirus is no joke. There are things you should obviously take care of to prevent your life going into chaos. But back to what you're saying, fear is not a foundation you want to start with. Tell me more.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, exactly. I think if we approach life from a more love-based, open-minded, everything is working out for me, nothing's wrong, kind of mentality, then we can start to think about this idea of disclosure. I don't know, what words we want to use. Disclosure, alien visitations, UFOs, intergalactic species, or whatever, however you want to look at it, interdimensionals. And I know we've talked about this in previous podcasts about this idea that, first of all, if you start with the law of attraction and the idea that everything is a reflection of you, that means literally everything is a reflection of you. It does not mean just some things and not other things. It means everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that includes this topic that we're on right now. So if you kind of think of it like that, it's a little easier to open your mind and open your eyes and open your heart to the idea. And so what I think is happening right now in our world is I think we're paving the way to opening our minds to this idea of living amongst something that seems so different. Because if you look at what's happening now, I mean, the whole, what's happening with transgender, the topic around transgender, right? Mm-hmm. We have a lot more, we're seeing a lot more diversity in the world.
Yes.
Even, I mean, I just voted and there is an initiative and I live in Colorado and there's an initiative in Colorado. Basically, 4 candidates will make it to the general election from the primary, whereas right now it's just 2, right? It's basically like a 2-party system right now.
Mm-hmm. So they're opening up the system.
Yes, they're opening up the system to allow for more options, essentially, is what's happening. My God, I kind of want to look up what this is called because it literally just... Anyway, point is, we're basically allowing for more options, right? That's just one example of how we're trying to open up these different areas in our lives to providing more options, more opportunity. I personally identify as a woman, and I leave the option open for me to identify as whatever the heck I want at some point in the future. I happen to be dating a guy who identifies as a man, but I also leave the option open to what if he wants to change how he identifies? It's cool. I think these things are happening on purpose because we're getting used to the idea of allowing for more diversity in our lives and opening our minds up. And so this is paving the way, in my mind, this is paving the way for us to also, be like, hey, you're from Andromeda.
You're from
cool. Yeah. And you're my neighbor. Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Tell me about the world you come from,
Exactly. And the humans have demonstrated, notice I speak to this in the third person as if I'm not from here, which could be possible. Who knows? I seem to be from here, but you can, Harry Potter found he was from Hogwarts. That at any moment it could happen. They're like, no, sorry, you're not from here. But back to this idea of diversity, the human beings mostly are getting along and we mostly accept diversity, except for in certain areas, not so much. Mm-hmm. And ask anyone who's been, on the other side of that, right? So we're getting better, but there's a lot more that needs to happen. And so I think in the next couple of years, I think, the idea is that we're going to accept each other more, push things ahead more for whether it's your race or your sexual orientation or your gender identification or all these fabulous things, so that we can become ready to be neighbors and citizens of the Milky Way. And that's just one. Let me remind everybody, there are trillions of galaxies. The Milky Way is one galaxy, and there are a lot of planets. If you look up, you'll notice those are suns, and suns go around stars. So there's planets everywhere. So I guess logically it makes sense that, we've got neighbors. And I think the thing that's hard for people is, can the neighbors travel that far? Well, smart neighbors can, and they're here, and they've been here for a long time. And I constantly watch, not constantly, I've watched a lot of, various things where they're carbon dating stuff that, looks like it was, stuff that can be carbon dated way farther back than we thought. And so it's very exciting. And I think the point is that we're doing this podcast today to make sure that fear doesn't get a hold of you. Because like most humans on earth are good, there are some assholes. And there are some people that are trying to manipulate things for their own gain. But that's not everybody. And mostly it's all good. Yeah. And that's how it's going to be when you find out your neighbor. There's going to be some really great experiences, and there's going to be some not so great experiences, because that's life, right? So don't be afraid of differentness. And my prediction is that the differentness won't be so different. And then eventually the difference will get like, whoa, that's a whole different being right there. And I'm going to take a minute to plug this book called Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, who did The Martian with Matt Damon. Hi, Matt Damon. I hope you're watching. And everyone loved The Martian, right? Like, did we not all love that movie? Like, it was really good. Andy Weir is an amazing writer. And I read Project Hail Mary. And all I want to say is that book is worth reading. The movie's going to have Ryan Gosling. Hi, Ryan Gosling. I know you're listening. Like the movie's going to have, it's going to be great. But the book was actually really nice. Like, I really like reading. I don't read too much fiction, but I read that and I was like, I love this book. And I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm just going to say, if you're a fiction reader, that's a great one to pick up. And then you'll enjoy the movie even more because it has Ryan Gosling in it. What's not to Okay. My point is, get ready for awesome. Okay, Erica, your
thoughts? Yes. I love this. Oh my God. I love it so much. Yeah. Yay. You're absolutely right. I think to your point about, there's mostly good, but then there's also crummy stuff that happens in the world. And to me, anything that feels bad or negative or icky or feels like a crappy experience, it's all rooted in fear. It's all rooted in fear. So thank you. So I think that's always where we need to try to tackle, always what we need to try to tackle first is the fear, right? And I think the reason there are people, in the world who are maybe not so open to the idea of more diversity and more, that's just, again, rooted in fear. That's all it is. It's a fear of the unknown. It's a fear of, our minds can take us to places of the worst case scenario. And that's, again, rooted in fear. That's when we get in trouble. And I think it's our responsibility, our personal responsibility, to really try to isolate that and figure that out, right? And change that, shift that. So that to me is really where to start. Whenever you feel uncomfortable about something, it's just some sort of fear that's sitting down beneath the whatevers. And and I think that's why we manifested we chose to come here as humans, because I do think that this world is unique and that it does offer us the opportunity. Bless you. It offers us the opportunity to look at fear. I think it's an opportunity because when we look at it, we can transform it. Because if you look at life and the way it works, it's ever changing. It's ever moving. It's ever growing. And it can grow in any which way that you want. So fears can grow. Fears can be transformed into hope and excitement and joy and love and openness. And so if you really believe that, then there's genuinely nothing to fear.
You're so wise. I love you. Oh my God. And I hope our audience loves you too. But that was amazing. And you are also, now I forgot what I was going to say, but the influence, because if you're influenced by the very highest part of you, you're going to be able to, some things are worth being afraid of. Like if an alligator is running at you, it's good that you have a fear response. It's not like you just sit there and go, I wonder what he's feeling. Like, like he's hungry and you are tasty. But I feel like the influence, it's like you can influence yourself. You don't even need the media to do that. But, you have to sort of separate yourself, I think, between your higher self, your true self, something that isn't separate. It's the main part of you, and the video game personality you're running. Like, I'm playing Lisa. I love this character. It's my favorite, but I know it's not who I am from a massive spiritual beingness. Like, that's something totally else, right? But we love our personalities. We love this game we're playing, but you have to kind of go, okay, I love her, but I don't want her to influence her, that ego part of myself, to influence, like, the negativity and the fear. So I think, you said it really good. It's like you catch that and it's a great opportunity because it's not just about aliens. This is the whole point we're trying to make, is this is your life. Like, this is, if you're going to do it about something really radical, like aliens and we're finally in the space age thing, or just, random everyday worries and stuff you're afraid of, like, that all matters. It doesn't matter what the topic is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You're right. Like, pick a topic, any topic. And that's, and how does it make you feel? Because, we are always go back to how you feel. If you feel the sense of tension and fear and anxiety and whatever, then, it's worth looking into for sure,
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I really think, I kind of wonder if the media is sort of this massive, in a way, I kind of almost look at it as like this test, like personally, you know what I mean? It's like,
it is.
If I can wake up any morning, any given day, and by the way, I haven't done this yet, so I'll let you all know when this happens, but meaning I haven't accomplished this yet, but if I can wake up on any given day and just read the news and not have an emotional reaction, because that's kind of, for me, it's like, right, exactly. So what I do is I either just don't, like, I don't participate, I don't read it, I don't engage. Or if I do, more and more I'm trying to really just be able to look at it from an objective sort of, not emotional sort of perspective. It's very difficult. And I mean, I don't know anyone who is able to do, I'm sure there's probably people out there who are able to do this, but that is one goal of mine, is to be able to ingest information, be able to, actually even more than that, it's to be able to have emotions, but not internalize them, not identify with them to the point where they're almost debilitating. Do you know what I mean? Or they
100%.
Right?
We have to consider the source. If everyone had all the news that's happening, there wouldn't be enough space for the bad stuff, because all the good stuff. Like, if you just kind of go, okay, breakfast was good, my digestive system is working today, the sun is out, like, there's so much good news, but people are selling you advertising.
Yes.
If you don't keep watching, like, it's just like, YouTube, like, everywhere, there's money to be made for views. And it's very rare that, and we have some really good, the Dan Rathers of the world and that stuff, where they're just going to tell you the facts and it's unbiased, and there's very few sources of that, but everybody wants you to watch more. So they're going to try and get an emotional response for you. They're not just like, hey, we told you this news, now go live your life and don't buy anything from us. Because if they're telling you that, like, this is what we're telling you, check in. Hopefully this is a great podcast for you. Now go do something. Get off the freaking internet and go be a third, fourth dimensional being.
Yes.
You do not need, we hope that this is the only thing you watch and then you're off in the world. I'm just kidding. But, but there's a vested interest in that. And whether it's, and I think there's people that, they're selling books. There's a guy, he still consults with the military. He's ex-military. he's awesome. He's like, hey, this is coming, just so you know. And he's great. He's been on a lot of shows now and, like real media. And it's great that he's sort of opening our minds. But he's got a little bit of the fear, and he's got a book to sell. And I get it. If I had a book to sell, I'd be asking the Flow Getter audience and more. I'm like, hey, go buy it. I would love to keep doing what I'm doing, so give me some money. That's totally understandable. But for something this big, I think the call to action here is really go inside yourself and say, this is going to happen. I don't want all of our cells to implode with stress. Like, yes. It's going to work out. First of all, I know I'm going on, but if they were going to eat our faces off, it would have already happened.
Yes.
Okay. Like, they've been.
Yes. You're told the amount of advancement in technology, and I mean, it's off the charts. Yeah. And to add to what you just said, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead. That's all. I wanted to finish with.
You're absolutely right.
Eating our faces off. Calm down.
Totally. This is so true. I mean, here's the truth. The truth, what I genuinely believe is they're already here.
Oh.
We as humans can only see and hear and feel so much. There's a limit to what we have chosen. We have chosen to limit ourselves in terms of what we can see and feel and hear. And yes, we have chosen that. It's always a choice on purpose.
And they've got tech. They can be found too much. And there's so much footage now. I just was watching some pilot. He's like showing that he's at 30,000 feet, and then he puts the camera out the window, and you see like a square weird thing go by. He's like, don't know what it is. Flying around. Like, now, granted, we can deep fake all, everyone can, but I'm like, it's really just
there's too much. Yes, don't resist.
Worry and just
don't
go with it. Yeah,
agree. Don't resist. Well, and it might help too to kind of open the conversation up to this idea that, again, I kind of want to go back to where I started, which was the law of attraction, right? Everything is
I totally
us,
forgot
right?
about that.
No, it's good. And I kind of wanted to save it till later on anyway, because here's why. If you do believe in the law of attraction, which is, of course, like one of our fundamental, you and me, right? It's our fundamental truths for us is everything is me. Okay, so if everything is me, that includes everything, right? So I 100% believe that whatever I see, whatever comes into my sphere, whatever comes into my existence, information, anything in the physical world, anything, ideas that pop in my head, that's all a reflection of me. And so I believe that whatever's going to visit is another reflection of me. It's just expanding my human brain to invite in more awesomeness is what it's doing. It's like, I believe that there are, first of all, everything's infinite. So if you can imagine it, it exists. Like there's no stop to what exists. There's no end. And that's very exciting for me. And
it is.
And so if I think about, these futuristic interdimensionals, extra dimensionals coming and visiting, that is a version of me that I've invited into my human experience. And I'm pretty excited about seeing what that is.
Big. It's really
huge.
Big.
There's so much I can learn. So much I can learn. I mean, I even look at, I think we've gotten so used to what is here on planet Earth that we don't really stop to think about we're already living amongst, if you want to say aliens. I mean, I look at like a praying mantis and I'm like, that thing is so cool. It's so different. It's like, cool. It looks like an alien. It's like, there's dogs. I mean, dogs are like our best friends. They're awesome. They're cool.
Creatures. And
we live with creatures, right? Exactly. We live with and communicate with creatures. We love these things. They're not human. We are already living amongst,
That's a good point. You're already, and let's be honest, humans are the only thing that doesn't match this entire ball of this perfect ecosystem and harmony. I think.
So who's the alien? Thank you.
Who dropped us here, left us here to figure it out, and then is coming back to be like, hi, how's it going? And we'll be like, it's going kind of crappy, actually. Can you help with the garbage, at least, and the microplastics? And they'll be like, yeah, sorry, we kind of let you guys go a little too on your own. And be like, yeah, can you help
awesome.
us a little? So yeah, and and anything in nature doesn't make things with right angles. I mean, we are clearly don't fit with this planet, and we figured it out. We couldn't survive on our own. You get rid of all of our tech, we'd be totally screwed. Everything else is like, I got this, you know. And I'm always smoking lip gloss. Just kidding. For those of you who are listening, Erica will edit that out.
Or I won't. We'll just make you go watch the video.
Yeah, go watch the video. Let's see what I did. So, you know, we're not. Yeah, back to law of attraction, because I kind of went off on a tangent.
It's good.
So and the other I think point that you're making, and I just want to kind of re-say it, is we're manifesting this new experience because it's time to grow.
Yes. Oh my God. Perfectly said.
New experience of there's more community out here in the Milky Way, and it's time, just like you're in kindergarten, you know, you have your little class and everything's kind of small and it's safe and good. And then as you get through the grades, world gets bigger and challenges happen and more awesomeness happens, and you get to be the captain more of your own ship. And so now it's like, yeah, and now we're going to do this interplanetarily and interdimensionally, because I don't know if anyone has recently watched physicist stuff on, you know, but there's real physicists saying, yes, there are other dimensions. Just saying, like, it's a fact. And I don't know, there's beings probably there too. There's more than enough people that are experiencing that, but we don't have to get to other dimensions yet, but at least interplanetary in the fourth dimension, space-time, it's going to be cool, and we're going to grow. And we're going to grow a lot, and it's going to blow a lot of minds. And I think part of the reason I wanted to do the podcast today was to start having the conversation with, obviously, Eric and I love talking about this stuff, but also with you, the audience, is like, we wanted to see where you're at with all of this. We want to see what's coming into your mind and things you're considering and how you feel about this, because, you know, whether you are completely like not plugged into that conversation, or if you're like right there on that edge and wanting to talk more about it. I think it's something it's starting to become in mainstream media. NASA talks about this. I mean, like, this is a thing now. So we thought it was important to like start this conversation with, you know, people on our vibration and our frequency. So, yeah, but I know we were talking about law of attraction. So
no, that was so perfect. I love it. Yeah. I love it so much. I think our hope is that we start to generate excitement around this idea and kind of shift, like move away from the fear and start generating, you know, hope and excitement. And, you know, and here's the thing, like you said, we on this earth, there's some stuff. We've created problems for ourselves. We just have, you know, and I think the timing is, I really do believe that the timing is right. It's almost like we're asking for more assistance, you know?
Oh, I
like,
love that. Yeah.
I love what you said. I mean, we're ready to grow. That's exactly what's going on. We're ready to grow, and we're ready to get help from, you know,
people smarter than us,
from our future selves, you know, from our future, more evolved selves. Let's just put it that way. Right. Because that's what's happening. I'm excited. I'm, you know, yeah, I'll admit, you know, and I've often, you know, throughout life wondered why, like, kind of been jealous of the people who, oh my gosh, I saw this dead person, or, you know, this voice spoke to me,
have experiences,
or have experiences that seem, you know, otherworldly or not the norm. And I've often been jealous. I'm like, I want an experience like that, but I know myself, and I get a little freaked out a little too easily. You know, I think I'm like, okay, I need to be ready. You know, I'm not ready for that. But I want to be ready. I really want to be ready. And I think it starts with a conversation like this, where we start to eliminate that fear. We stop, you know, I think it starts with this.
I love that. It does. It's like you're prepared, because obviously we're kind of a little more, than your average bear, a little geeked about like, oh, yay, cool. But the truth is that seeing something that has eyes smaller or bigger or has different, I mean, my guess is if they're going to sort of be here, it'll be the least amount of freaky.
Yes.
Just to kind of get everyone like, okay, we've seen something
ease you
sort of
into
similar. It's like, oh, the 3-head person with 17 eyes is probably, and I say person because if they're intelligent and sovereign, they're a person. That might be later. But even that, because we've been also, I mean, I love a good horror. I love Ridley Scott. I'll watch any alien movie that man puts together. Raised by Wolves. If you haven't seen it, they didn't get to finish the season, but it's amazing. Here's me. I'm like plugging all the sci-fi.
So awesome. I love it.
So, we all saw like there's certainly enough scary alien movies out there to have brought fear, but also Arrival. Oh my God, if you haven't seen Arrival with Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner.
Yes.
So good. Heart, not scary. Must watch. If you haven't seen it. If you see any alien movie, that is the one to watch. It's so good.
Agree.
And so, there's positive and negative. And I really lately also, Tafoya, I have been kind of on this timeline thing where if I listen to physicists, there really could be a variety of timelines or dimension or whatever. And I think, you know what? I just want to get on the happy alien timeline because I'm pretty sure that there's some other options and I don't want to, like sort of the state of humanity, all that stuff. I'm like, I just got to stay focused. So I think another law of attraction thing is, back to what you're saying is you're going to draw those things too, is just stay focused on getting used to this idea of like, okay, something new is going to come and I can handle it. And it's going to be like, wow. And, I'm getting chills on saying it. Like, it's going to be wow, but I can do it. And just keep affirming that. And then I think what that does is that it shifts your frequency to be able to like, just like if, with people trying to attract money or love or whatever, like some people can't even imagine someone balanced, loving, kind, totally supportive, yet independent, all this great stuff. They cannot fathom dating, let alone partnering with someone like that. Like that is so, they're just trying to get to the next beep. But if you got ready for that on a more regular basis, the likelihood of that being in your life is so much higher. So this is the same thing, is anything in your life, whether it's financial, love-related, health-related, you've got to be able to see it in your mind's eye and not resist it with your mind, right? Absolutely. Like you can't be like, oh, that'll never happen to me, or oh my God, that's going to be so freaky, or like whatever. You've got to do the work, I guess is what I'm saying. Like
yes,
or just be surprised and deal with the aftermath, but don't, do the work. Well, get on the wrong timeline. See if I care. I'm just kidding.
Well, you brought up so many good things. One point you made, which was awesome, is this idea of getting on board. Think about anything in your past that you didn't do and you were afraid to do, or you're afraid of, whatever it was, a new school, a new job, a new location, a new, the end of a relationship, that's scary because that equals a new kind of path in your life, mm-hmm. New anything. And I would be willing to bet. Sorry. That's weird. It's like hearing things. Speaking of the aliens, I think they've arrived.
Well, if we get it on video, this channel's
that would be incredible. That'd be awesome. So anything new, my guess is probably there was a layer of fear there, maybe, with bigger new changes in your life. But I would also be willing to bet that those are the turning points that launched you into something even more awesome. And I can say from personal experience, anything new that I did, those, I feel like I could kind of cut my life up into chapters, mm-hmm. and be like, okay, that was the end of one chapter and that was the beginning of a new one. And how it pushed me forward in the best way possible every single time. And I think this is just another chapter, right? This is a individual and a collective chapter that we're creating here. And it's awesome. And it's something to, you know, like we're saying, embrace
change, embrace growth,
change,
and focus positively. Avoid being influenced by anything other than your higher self, because you're always influenced. You're influenced by, like, I was watching a television show and then I switched to another television show. And when I was in one television show, I was like so into it and influenced. And then I switched and I was like, oh, I don't like this one as much. It's like we like to be influenced. Like, that's fun for us. It feels like a break,
Yes.
So it ties us to things. I was like, oh, I want to be in that world with those outfits and whatever, like I was like, groovy. So it's kind of, we have to admit that we like the influence. And I think it's fine, but just know you're choosing it. Like, I'm choosing to be influenced by, like when I used to read, the magazines when I was in high school or whatever, before ye old internet, it's like you get like, oh, I want to look like that and do, like you're kind of pulling that in for better or for worse. Right.
Yeah.
So when it comes to intergalactic neighbors and the media, I mean, do you think, like, I know we've had a lot of stuff going on this last 8 years with the elections and pandemics and all this kind of stuff, race issues, so many different things happening. Do you think if we even kind of get some, what they call it, disclosure, where there's like, hey, we've known they're here, or stuff's happening, there's several species here, kind of thing. Do you think that we won't have wall-to-wall coverage on every possible media, everything for infinity? Okay, it's going to happen, right? Like, it's going to be a thing that we will never turn back from. Well, don't you want to be, one, in a positive vibe for that? And two, just not get like overwhelmed with whatever everyone's going to say, because there are going to be people that will make money off the negativity. Mm-hmm. You better prepare. You got to buy all these things.
Yes.
You've got to buy all my books. You need to enter my secret membership group and we're going to fight this. And yes. I mean, it's going to be off the hook. And there's going to be the positive groups. Join us and we will communicate with them and we'll be one with them and blah, 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 blah. Okay, yes. Would I like to be an alien ambassador and get to go on ships? Groovy. Sounds fun if they're cool people. But like, there's going to be everything and every flavor in the media and the news. I mean, it's just going to be unfathomable amounts of people trying to either profit off it, join it, everybody's going to have to reorient everything around this. This is going to be the biggest thing that has ever happened.
Absolutely.
So I think part of the reason, again, wanting to start this conversation is being like, try to imagine that. Like, you thought the pandemic was something? That was nothing. There were other things on the news besides that for a while. This will not be that. And everyone's going to have an opinion, all that stuff. And I hope I don't sound negative about it, but I sort of feel like I've been observing humanity for a while. Like, I think it's, now that we have the internet, I think it's going to be a really big thing. And I want to be in a position of peace and excitement and not get sucked into anything so that I don't get off center, because the whole point of Flow Getter is for you to find your center, to have your own compass and go with the information that you're given, obviously, but just, that kind of thing. So I think that's another reason, is like, I don't want that to be like a tidal wave of stimulus and, or people trying to profit off me in that, like, at all. Like, sorry.
Totally.
Kind of thing. And so I guess that's kind of, obviously I feel strongly about that. I went off on that tangent.
I love it. And you just made me think of, it's a slight tangent, but I just kind of want to just say it out loud before it leaves my brain. You mentioned pandemic, and I was like, I remember during the pandemic how everything seemed to, just for a blip, like stop, mm-hmm. Everything closed down. You couldn't travel. You weren't supposed to go places. And I mean, I even remember taking a walk with my dad one day, and the skies were clear. There were no airplanes in the sky. You could see like,
it was just actually quiet.
It was actually quiet. You could actually see downtown from where we were, which is kind of far away. Things had just kind of stopped. And I remember we talked about this, and my dad and I, and we were like, and I'm sure a lot of people had this thought too, like this is a collective, we collectively did this. This is a collective push on pause. Stop what you're doing and just take a minute and reflect. That's what this is about. And you got to shift course. That to me was, the pandemic was screaming for us to do this. And there's a reason it happens every 100 years. It happens in everybody's lifetime at least once, because shit gets off track and we buy so much into this fear, you know? Yeah. And it's like, we're collectively saying, okay, stop, just take a minute and pause and shift the boat, man. And I feel like that the timing of the pandemic, you know, leading into this conversation we're having now is kind of perfect, because it's like, okay, did we learn anything from it? Did we actually pause? Because it's not over. I mean, now COVID's here, you know, apparently for life, right? It's like the flu now. You can get COVID. But do we learn? Do we genuinely stop and take the lessons? Do we hear what we're supposed to be hearing, you know, or do we just get back to life as usual? And do we not take anything, you know? And then, I kind of look at this, you know, and something similar like well, not to get too political, but like the electoral college thing, like another election's coming up. And, you know, we've had 3 times, I think, where the electoral college has not worked, you know, the way that it's worked the way that it was designed to work, but it does not work for what the people want, really. And so it's like, we don't seem to learn. But my hope is that with more awareness, more consciousness, more conversations like this, we learn to pause and really think about what's important and really remember, you know, like you say, before the onslaught of, oh my God, our entire existence is now changing. Like like you say, it's the biggest change of our lives, of our human lives right now. Hopefully we take this opportunity to stop and prepare ourselves, and in the best way possible, not in a fear-based way where I'm going to like lock up all my doors and, you know, duct tape my house. Like, I'm not going to do that, you know?
Would look awesome.
It totally would. No. Right? What is that?
Looking. That is not fashion forward, which brings us to our fashion part of this conversation. So, because there has to be a fashion component to Flow Getter. Yes. I feel like no, I'm kidding, but or am I, but you're saying, yeah, it's like
maybe the aliens will bring
us.
It's
like, who did you want, if you could go back to the pandemic, what would you have changed about your experience? And, you know, ultimately, I think the answer when you look back at anything, whether it's 10 years ago or 30 years ago or whatever, is you wish you had more peace and you had more love.
Yes.
Even if you had to make hard choices, even if you had to suffer, even if things were
in the short term,
we always are wishing that we could have been more centered, which means, you know, that peace thing, and more love can always be useful.
Absolutely.
And there could be more things, but those are just the 2 that come to my mind. Yeah. And how would we do it differently? And I'm a surfer, and I honestly, they call it the forerunner, where you see these, like a couple little waves will come and you're like, oh, there's a set coming, because you're like, hey, okay, and you know not to take those because you'll be stuck inside when the bigger waves come. And so I sort of feel like the pandemic was a massive thing, and it's just a forerunner. Yes. So it's like, I guess the question for me is, how can I prepare myself to be a person who can love more, encompass more, handle more, be more expansive, and really upgrade myself and be more resilient to change, right? Because change is tough on everybody, like it is. We're just creatures of habit, right? So it's like, those are great questions. I mean, I think the main thing is meditate more, and just have those questions of like, okay, I want to be really like able to handle this new world and really like not let it shock me before I can get used to it. Cause that's what the pandemic did for me is I was had too much shock for me. And it took me a long time to kind of be like, okay, living with COVID kind of thing, like it was just tough. And so I'm like, well, kind of don't want to make that mistake again. And you can only prepare so much. But I think part of it is you can be excited. Who are these new people? How will we relate to them? What's the good that's going to come out of that? And fantasize about the awesomeness that could be. And if it doesn't turn out that way, you didn't spend between now and then in a sympathetic nervous system. You spent your time in a parasympathetic nervous system, which is so healthy for you. And so that is good. And so you can only win. You can only win.
Yes. Beautiful. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I love this. Yeah. That's exactly it. What's your next step really is what we're asking, how are you gonna, and not just for this, cause I know right now our topic is this, but like, how are you going to prepare for your next whatever
growth spurt?
Yeah. Yes.
A growth spurt is coming to you soon, whether it's life challenges, aliens, or things we can't even possibly imagine that are good. But like growth doesn't have to be painful or suffering.
No.
It just means you get a little poke in the butt to be like, okay, be more you. Yeah. And what does that look like? So I definitely want to hear from our audience on that, because this is a conversation we're having. We are, we don't know anything. Nobody knows anything. So I think you, the audience, are just as much of an authority on this as anybody, because we're all in the same boat with this one. There's nobody. I think there are people that are much more, I would say they're either channeling or they're have interactions or they're in conversations with the government. So there's like a % of people that are a lot more prepared for this because it's been in their life more. But we're average, everybody's average, like we're all in the same boat, and we all need to come together to be like, okay, we're going to welcome this new world that we're going to have.
Yes. And 2 things came to mind. I'm just going to say them out loud so I don't forget. 1 is proactivity, and 2 is meditating. The proactivity is, if we think about, I've been thinking a lot about this, just again, it's an election year. Sorry, I keep bringing it back to this, but
it's on our minds. We've got days before the election.
Yes.
So.
And I keep thinking about how a lot of times I think as human beings, we are reactive. Something will happen and then we'll react, versus, us taking the wisdom that we've gained and then learning from that and then putting things in place that will help kind of shift the tides, and I guess maybe prevent the same thing from happening. I was thinking about this when I was filling out my ballot about how I would love to see more money put into preventative things. Education to me is huge. If we could, pour money into, and I'm not just talking about traditional education. I'm talking about education on all things. How do we educate future parents? How do we educate in a variety of different topics and industries so that we're prepared? And I think that's kind of what we're talking about here too, is how do we prevent freak out, prevent fear, more fear, prevent, not just react, when we start to see things in the news and we start to, who knows, maybe we start to have physical interactions with things that we're not prepared for. Rather than just waiting and reacting in a fearful way, how do we prepare ourselves and, like all the things that we've already talked about? So that's that. Second thing, what was the second thing I said?
Meditation.
Meditation. Thank you. See, I knew I'd forget. The other thing too is meditation. And this is just one example of how we can even now start to connect with what is coming. Because I don't think we have to wait. I don't think we have to wait till we start to see the news. I don't think we have to wait until we start to see stories or hear stories, or, you can start connecting now, believe it or not. Because like we said, things are already here. There are energies, there are extra dimensional, interdimensional, however you want to call it, whatever you want to, refer to it as. It's already here, because as we know, time is not linear, like what you were saying before. And we definitely will have a podcast on this to kind of break down the whole time thing in the future. We have one, we'll have more.
It's less science. I know. I really want to do a sciencey one where we can really like, we're not pulling this out of our butt.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We just aren't science. We don't have enough science language to explain all of it, but it's out there. So
anyway. Yes. And we'll do our best when we get there. Yeah. But the point is because everything has already happened, like you do have the capability of tapping into that. So, we've talked about this kind of here and there throughout our various podcasts, but the point is there are things that you can do to tap into what is coming so that you actually become more comfortable with this kind of different energy and you recognize it and you invite it in now. And so that there's less fear around it, right? Or no fear, ideally no fear around it.
There's stoke. We're looking
there's stoke and excitement. Yes. Meditation is one way that you can do that. If you just kind of open yourself, and I know we have varying definitions of what meditation is, and I'll just share what mine is if it's helpful. But when I meditate, I actually, my goal is to let go of everything, just let go of, just kind of open myself up to whatever wants to connect with me. That's what I do when I meditate. It's and I know other people do it for different reasons or they do it different ways, but I just kind of get into a more quiet space in my body and my mind so that I can open myself up to whatever it is that I need to know personally, and if your intention is to connect with, the extra and whatever beings, energy that's out there, then if your intention is that, then you will be able to do it. It may take practice. It may take time. And there's a ton of stuff out there that can help guide you. And, again, this is a start of a conversation. So I'm sure eventually we'll have something as well. But, just know that you don't have to wait. You can start now.
I love that. Yeah. And it's so the proactivity and the meditation, those can only help you as tools for, I'll call it the regular things in your life. Like, just being, because at the end of the day, like, okay, aliens, schmalians, how does this help me, do the things I want to do in my regular life, right? Like we all have goals from health and money and love and all, but everybody's got their goals in life. And so you're like, well, why do I even care about this stuff? And so the idea is that whether it's, whatever changes are to come, you're feeling in a better, I want to say more alignment with all that is, or creation, or your higher self, or God for people who, all of that is only going to make you powerful. That is only going to make you peaceful. That's only going to make you full of good vibes and, all the things like that. So it doesn't matter what it's for. Like we like this topic because that's fun, but I'm going to forget about that on Monday and be like, oh my God, I need better at this. I'm going to turn back into a person. So the practice of, being open and letting yourself kind of, I would say, discard narratives in your own mind about, I don't like myself because of this, and I'm frustrated about that, and they shouldn't do this, and just clearing all that away can only be good, and it can only align you with your true self and your truth, so that you can have your truth now and in the future, no matter what happens. Because we could be completely misjudging our future about all this stuff, but at the end of the day, you're just a person just making dinner, doing your work, having a family, doing stuff, and that can only be useful, I think.
I agree. In my experience, 100%, because in my experience, exactly what you said, anytime I have sought answers, even if I, in my brain, I've decided I need to know this thing and I'm going to open myself up to the answer from the universe, and I get something that seems completely like out from left field or completely unrelated, I trust that is what I needed to know in that moment. Like that. So if you trust that, even if you're like, I want to connect with extra dimensionals, and then all of a sudden you're getting something totally different, like that's like, that's
do your taxes.
What?
Yeah.
Like, trust that that's what you need to hear.
Fun. Yeah. You're like, oh, okay.
But it's a, because I think we are intending to connect with our higher selves, which is really what we're doing. I mean, when we're trying to connect with this extra dimensional energy, it's a version of us. That's what we're always doing. We're always connecting with a different version of us all the time. And so your kind of bigger, I guess, maybe fuller evolved self or fully evolved self is letting you know, is kind of, saying, hey, this is the direction we need you to go in order to.
And for those people who don't, I guess, understand kind of how that is, do you want to explain that a little more? Because I think that might be a little esoteric for those who are like, wait, why is the alien from the Pleiades my future self? Like,
right.
Yeah. What does that mean?
So in my mind, okay, again, I'm going to go back to this idea of law of attraction, which if you've been following us up to this point, or even if you haven't, and this is the first time you're hearing us, our belief, our fundamental belief, one of them is that our existence is built on this idea of the law of attraction. So we're made up of this kind of energy that we send out energy, and energy out there matches it, and it brings us our reality and our experiences. And that's how it works. That's how life works. That's just how it works no matter what. So whether we're talking about
broadcasting a vibration, and you can only sort of see and experience something that is similar to that because it wouldn't match on a sciencey frequency level.
Yes.
Level. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. It's like magnets, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. So, thank you for bringing in the science. So if that's true, and that's kind of to me the fundamental, like if you believe that, then everything that you pull into your existence is matching the energy that you're spitting out. So it's reflecting, it's like a mirror. It's reflecting a certain part of you, a large part, a small part, whatever it is, whatever, it's coming back to you and saying, hey, this is what's going on. And it's so when I say our future selves, first of all, if that's true, then you are drawing in a version of yourself. And in my mind, I like to believe that when we're talking about extra dimensional energy, when I think of anything from outer space that can come and visit me, I'm thinking they're probably a little more evolved than me, because I can't just push a button and plummet myself out into outer space.
Not yet.
Right.
But by Thursday.
I mean, I know it's happening. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. I know it's coming. And I know we're working on it collectively as humans. But the point is, like, the fact that we're preparing ourselves for the visit from versus us preparing ourselves for the visit out there, because that feels like it's going to happen sooner.
Yeah.
That to me says that to me logically says that's a future version of myself. That's kind of how I got there, if that makes sense.
Almost.
I don't know. Okay.
Here, let me see if I can break it down. That it's a version of you. It's an evolved being that has wisdom and knowledge, for better, for worse. Maybe they're, wise, but assholes, or wise and not cool, super awesome. It's coming to you to say, hey, it's like you're pulling in the experience. So are they really a version of you, or are they a version of your consciousness telling you, hey, you need to like evolve and grow?
And it's a good question. I think that's the same thing. I think whether you say me
so
or
in your
consciousness.
Mind, it's the same thing. Yeah, I said or, and you're saying and.
Yeah, I'm like,
got it.
When you say, is it a version of you or a version of your consciousness? I'm like, well, I am my consciousness. Right. I created this. I'm not separate from my consciousness.
Exactly. And technically we're all one thing.
Yeah.
So it is a version of you, because
right.
there is no separation between. And to back up for our audience who was like, what the heck are you guys talking about? The idea is that there's one source of creation, and all things emanate from that source of creation. Ergo, everything is all from one thing at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and
like you've said,
having an experience, it's coming, everything busts itself into a facet. So all that is an Erica. It's also a Lisa. It's also this lip gloss because it wants to be lip gloss for a day. And, it's all the things having an experience of itself.
Yes.
And that's pretty heady, right? For people who are like, wait, what? But the idea is that, we're small, puny humans that can only like conceptualize to some extent. And we just have to kind of trust that like everything is for you and everything is one thing, and just relax. It's fine.
And I think that's kind of where what's helped me not be afraid is really truly believing that it's just me. Because I think, again, the fear stems from the unknown. The fear stems from this idea that we are so different than this thing. I mean, that's where it's like,
that's where everything happens.
That's, it's, I mean, you look in this world that, you can see evidence. Oh, you're so different than me that I don't like you,
Right.
So
and if you just say yes to the idea that is you.
Yes. Even if it feels uncomfortable, that's a call for you to look inside yourself and be like, where am I uncomfortable about that part of me? Because it is. It wouldn't enter into your space. Look, we're not going to be visited by these things that there's intention there. There always is. I think we get into victim territory when we think of ourselves as that separate from anything. That's where victim mentality starts and ends, really. Yeah. And so that's why, like, I don't subscribe to any of that, and I can't, and it's not even a part of I can't do it, because, and that's what leads me to me, it is so obvious that everything is me. And when I say me, it is all encompassing. I am source. I am my consciousness. I am this human body. There is no separation between those things. They're all the same to me. I do not take, even when I, this idea of my ego, I mean, I don't tend to use that word personally, but the idea is like, it's just as much a part of me as source is, because I've chosen it. I've chosen all of it. And I've chosen for this experience that I'm having now, in the future, yesterday, whatever, right? Like, it's all me. And so I think that's where, and I feel like it can be complex if you want it to be, or it can be very simple. But to me, it's kind of, I tend to oversimplify things because my brain can't really do complex. It's very hard for it to do complex. So for me, it's like, law of attraction equals everything comes to me, equals everything is me. Done. So that's kind of where
I like, you can drop your mic now. That was so good. That's exactly what I was looking for. I think that you added some layers and nuances there that I think clarified things for me, and I'm hoping clarified things from our audience on where you're coming from. And also, I 100% agree. I love it.
Thank you for asking.
Love it.
This is why we work together, because my brain's like, just one word will explain everything. And you're like, no, explain it all.
Well, I get it. I have to
it.
remember that we're podcasting our conversations. And so I'm like,
that's good.
Funny. Other people could be listening. And also too, it helps me because sometimes I love shorthand too, like once you kind of get it down, you're like, boom, boom, boom. Okay, good. Like you don't have, who's got time for all those thoughts? I'm busy. So, it's really, so thank you for clarifying that. And I'm definitely going to replay a lot of that over to kind of like going, I love that new, because I 100% feel the same way. It's just sometimes different words kind of get in my head slightly differently.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, now I get it, because I'm 100% on all of that. I love it. And so Flow Getter fans and friends, we definitely want to hear your thoughts on, I mean, we went everywhere today. We didn't cover fashion. And I just want to say this, get your outfits ready for the new world, because we all want to look our best for our new friends. So make it work. Okay.
And they're going to bring us fashion forward ideas too. So that's going to be awesome.
God, I hope so.
Yeah.
And I mean, we, humans have good hair generally, like we've got hair, and I haven't seen too many pictures of great hair, but I'm, there could be great outfits. But maybe we won't care because they'll teach us how to be psychic or levitate stuff.
Maybe
we'll like,
maybe no hair is
like
a
boring.
cool thing.
Maybe it's good. Yeah, I don't know. But we're looking forward to the fashion aspect of the new world that we're going to be going into. But friends, fans, audience, new people, and people who've been with us for a while, we thank you once again for going all the way through an episode with us. And we are so excited that you're with us in this conversation, and we want to hear your thoughts. So we have comments, obviously, on YouTube. And you can contact us through flowgetter.com. That's flowgetter.com. And we look forward to seeing you next time. So if you'd like, please like and subscribe, because that helps the algorithms, and that's always a good thing. Okay. Until then, Erica, thank you so much for your insights and genius today. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Until then, nanu. All right.